We'll now move on to the next item of business, which is topical questions. And at question number 1, I call Carol Mockin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the reported review of more than 1,000 CT scans in light of concerns regarding the quality of assessment made by a consultant radiologist.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. NHS Golden Jubilee, which hosts the Scottish National Radiology Reporting Service, has confirmed that discrepancies were identified in some reports by an individual consultant radiologist, and immediate action was taken by them to comprehensively review all relevant CT examinations. The findings were shared with relevant health boards, who are currently investigating the clinical impact of the discrepancies under the appropriate clinical governance and duty of candour requirements, and I understand it is too soon to determine the impact on individual patients. Individual staffing matters are entirely for the health board to resolve. However, NHS Golden Jubilee has confirmed that the individual is no longer working for the SNRSS.
Carol Mockin.
Thank you. I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response, and of course I welcome the immediate action taken. But what about further clarity on how this was allowed to happen, and when, can I ask, when specific health boards, what specific health boards have been affected, and when can the affected patients expect to be notified?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank Carol Mockin for that further question. The audit obviously ensures that we are able to pick up on these issues in a relatively timious way. NHS boards have a duty of candour in making sure that they are reporting any issues that may be impacting patients, and my understanding is that is currently underway. As I said in my opening answer, it's too early to say what the impact of that will be, or indeed what its geographical spread will be, as Carol Mockin requests, but as more information comes to light, clearly I'll seek to make sure that both Ms Mockin and others are kept up to date.
Carol Mockin.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. I'm sure the Cabinet Secretary recognises that errors like this will impact public's trust and confidence in the Scottish National Radiology Reporting Service, which is relatively new, having just launched in 2020. So this is during a time when we seem to have regular scandals in the NHS. And so I wonder, how will the Government ensure that lessons are learned and that similar errors do not occur again in the future?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. I think there's two things to note here. The first is that discrepancies are not necessarily errors, but are a disagreement on the appropriate reporting between two or more radiologists. They are estimated to occur in between 3 and 30% of all radiological examinations. That's from the Royal College. Some will be errors, but at the subset of those errors, and they may have impact on patients, which will lead to the duty of candour obligations that I set out earlier. The second point in terms of reassurance is that from the start of a pilot in July 2020 through the transition to business as usual in November 2021 until March 2023, over 240,000 examinations have been reported through the SNRS bank, equating to over 42,000 hours of reporting. So this is a small number in compared to the overall system. And in terms of lessons learned and in terms of how we're ensuring we're giving confidence to patients, the duty of candour process, the auditing process that's underway, I hope will give Ms Mockin and patients the reassurance that she's asking for.
Thank you. Claire Haughey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Naramine Chamber. I'm employed as a bank nurse by Greater Glasgow and Clyde NHS. I note that around 10 patients have been identified as being potentially impacted by the work of this radiologist, and this will undoubtedly be a very troubling and worrying time for those individuals and their loved ones. Can the Cabinet Secretary give assurance to those who have been affected that they will be contacted timely by NHS boards and supported during this potentially distressing time?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I can, and I want to share Ms Haughey's feeling of the distress that must be felt by those individuals that have been referenced, and I would want to express my sincere sympathies to those patients affected at this difficult time. I can confirm that the relevant health boards have initiated duty of candour requirements. The Scottish Government is clear that when harm occurs or has the potential to occur, the focus must be on personal contact with those affected, and that openness and transparency is fundamental to promoting a culture of learning, of continuous improvement in health and social care settings, and ensuring that we have that feeling of trust with our institutions. The duty of candour procedure reflects the Scottish Government's commitment to place people at the heart of health and social care services in Scotland, and I hope that goes some way to answer Ms Hockey's question.
Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware of the advancement of AI in this area in terms of reading scans, and they have become extremely accurate and extremely quick at highlighting any anomalies that they would highlight towards a healthcare professional. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what he's doing to ensure that this kind of AI is adopted into the health service as quickly as possible?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think in reference to the questions before us, I think Brian Whittle's point is a fair one, and one that we are exploring. He'll understand that there are sensitivities for us and making sure that we are operating appropriately with the use of artificial intelligence, but we do have very good intelligence and experience of artificial intelligence being used to read scans in certain disciplines, not just in Scotland but across the UK, and cancer is a good example of that. And so where that can identify issues quickly, obviously we're looking to invest in that innovation and that technology, and my hope is that the investments that we've proposed through the budget for next year will help us to take those matters forward.
Question number 2, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it had with the UK Government at the British-Irish Council Summit regarding ending the two-child benefit cap.
Cabinet Secretary Shirley-Anne Somerville.
The First Minister had positive discussions with the Prime Minister at the British-Irish Council Summit last week. They discussed a range of issues, including scrapping the two-child cap in Scotland, a measure which could lift around 15,000 children out of poverty. Last week, our draft budget committed £3 million in the year 25-26 to develop the systems required, but we do need the cooperation from the DWP to move at pace. That's why I have also written to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions and hope to meet as soon as possible to discuss this further.
Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Scrapping the two-child benefit cap is the right thing to do and will lift 15,000 children in Scotland out of poverty. But in order to do so, the Scottish Government requires the data from the Westminster Government to make payments a reality. Is the Cabinet Secretary confident that the Westminster Government will provide that data?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Overall, we have very good relations with the DWP with regard to the devolution of social security benefits, and that's both under the previous Conservative administration and moving into the Labour administration, although it would be fair to say relations were somewhat strained during the winter fuel payment discussions. In saying that, Presiding Officer, I do believe that those good relations will stand us in good stead, and the discussions that the First Minister and Prime Minister have had will, I hope, set the tone for both governments working forward. So if we are at the point now, Presiding Officer, where Keir Starmer has said that he will not stand in the way of allowing Scotland to scrap the cap, it is perhaps ironic that Scottish Labour and Anna Sarwar might, unless they actually support our budget when it comes forward for the final vote.
Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I hope that there will be an easy data transfer from the Westminster Government. And I do hope that Labour in Scotland will reflect on some of the things that have been said by the likes of the Child Poverty Action Group and will back the budget. The right thing, of course, for the Westminster Government to do would be to scrap the cap right across the UK, which would be beneficial for children and families from Aberdeen to Aberystwyth. Has the Scottish Government been given any indication that the UK Government is willing to do so?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, Kevin Stewart's quite right to point out that the best way to actually alleviate poverty in this area would be for the UK Government to do the right thing. It is one of the policy interventions that could be one of the biggest differences in tackling child poverty, and indeed the IFS have said that reversing the two-child limit would lift 540,000 children out of absolute poverty right across the UK. It is therefore deeply disappointing about the lack of action that was in Rachel Reeves's budget and again within further pronouncements from the UK Government. Because of those repeated calls on the UK Government failing to take action have resulted in absolutely no change in the Labour Government policy, the Scottish Government has decided it cannot wait any longer, and that's why this Government will take decisive action to scrap the cap.
Thank you. Stephen Kerr.
How much will this policy cost? There's no mention of any amount in the budget documents. So will the Cabinet Secretary tell Parliament how much will it cost?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the budget clearly sets out that there's £3 million within the 25-26 budget to allow us to build the systems to allow us to scrap the cap. This obviously can't be done at source because we don't have the powers, but that is how we will mitigate it. The Scottish Fiscal Commission, who are responsible for setting out the detail of how much social security will cost, have estimated this at £150 million. They will be doing further work on that, but that is how we will base the Government's work, as always, is on the Scottish Fiscal Commission's work. And I think that's an important, again, investment in the people of Scotland that this Government will take.
Paul O'Kane.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I welcome the Scottish Government's ongoing positive engagement with the British Irish Council? It is a very important body for promoting peace and stability across these islands, and as a dual citizen I take it extremely seriously, and I hope that all members take its work seriously also. I would also welcome the commitment at the weekend from both the Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster to work constructively with the Scottish Government on these issues as part of that wider reset of relations between governments. The Cabinet Secretary and I have discussed before the new UK Government's Child Poverty Task Force, which is looking at a range of issues, including universal credit and the two-child limit. I know that Scottish Government ministers and officials were at the Task Force meeting in Glasgow on the 21st of November with Secretary of State Liz Kendall, so I wonder if she can confirm if the Scottish Government discussed its policy proposal on the two-child limit at that meeting.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, this was a public meeting, as the member will be well aware, so it's not appropriate to get into discussions about what may happen within the Scottish Government budget in a public meeting of this setting. But it would be fair to say, and I don't think it should come as a surprise to Paul O'Kane or to the Labour Party, that after the Change election, where no change happened to the two-child cap, after the budget, where there was no change to the two-child cap, and after the launch of the Poverty Task Force, when there was no change in the two-child cap, this Government has delivered the change that people were looking for.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions, and we move on to the next item.